I think helping parents not be as fearful and empower them can be done really simply, right?
Yeah, you have the tools that you can use to make the fit between the child and the environment better.
Yeah.
That's what they call the goodness of fit model. If the
Yeah.
child's particular temperament fits within the environment he's born into, then he'll probably proceed positively through his development. However, if there's conflict right from the beginning, between their temperaments, it's going to affect that process and sometimes negatively. So knowing the child's temperament is key to understanding the child. And the
Absolutely.
more we understand the child, the better we can serve their needs through the strategies we use as parents.
Right.
And we know that we have to adjust our strategy skills for different types of children or
Exactly.
how other children interrelate. So it's a
And
whole family thing, really.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique Jaramillo, your astrologer and host. I believe astrology can fast-track personal growth, improve relationships, and empower parents. On this show, I will bring you practical guidance and insight from my own work, studies, and life experiences, as well as interview experts to bring you stellar wisdom from other teachers and professionals to inspire you on your journey. I'm so glad you're here and thanks for tuning in. So sit back, enjoy the show, and be sure to follow, like, and subscribe to catch every new episode as soon as it drops. Your shares and reviews are also much appreciated to help more people benefit from nurturing astrology. Okay, let's dive into today's show. Okay, hi everyone. Welcome back to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique Jaramillo, your astrologer and host, and I'm back today with Cornelia Hansen, my friend, astrologer, co-teacher, mentor. Welcome, Cornelia. So glad to be back with you doing these talks again.
Thank you.
It's
I
good to
love
have you.
talking with you.
Oh, thanks. Me too. We want to dive into a topic that in some circles is a little controversial, maybe, right? That we think is really important and one that doesn't get as much focus as maybe it should. And that's doing children's charts, right? We're going to talk about why astrologers avoid doing children's charts and some of the difficulties and challenges they face in doing this, because there are definitely some warnings that come with doing this kind of work, right? That astrologers should be aware of before diving into this kind of work. So we're going to discuss that and also some good reasons that we think professional astrologers should be doing this kind of work, right? And offer some tips and best practices and tools for doing it ethically and responsibly. Plus, we're going to share the benefits that can come with working with children's charts and families. And at the end, we're going to provide resources and some direction if you are interested as an astrologer or a new astrologer, adding this to your skill set, or ways to gather more information to be able to do this kind of work. And before we dive in, I just have one disclaimer I want to make because I know that there are, in fact, many professional astrologers who do this work, and they do it well and they do it responsibly. So it's not to say that astrologers are not, but it's a specialty that isn't focused on as much as other person-centered astrology and counseling. And so that's changing, right, Cornelia? You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
And you've noticed that in the class that you teach at Kepler about understanding the child in the chart, and how you've had more and more students in this class each semester.
Right. When I started out, I would get maybe 2 students. Okay. The last time I did the class, which was in the winter, I had 20 students. I
Wow.
have them from all over the world, and I have gotten a lot of feedback from them. I remember one in Greece, she sent me an email saying that she loves the work and that she's being very successful using the method
Oh,
that I use teaching in the class.
that's
So
so
that's good to know that the interest is there. And these students say they are very interested in working with children and families.
yeah.
And
And I
Kepler, I think, is the only one that has one on children by itself.
it's the only one that I know of. I took it with
Right,
me like 7 years ago or something. It's the only one I know of, you
right.
know.
And the one that we do on the website.
And the one that we do, exactly, the whole child conscious parenting with astrology program. So yeah, we'll share a little bit about that as well. So yeah, so Cornelia has definitely seen this interest. And ultimately, we believe, and it's our passion and goal, that more astrologers should be doing this work. And we have focused a lot in terms of wanting to help parents and astrologers, but I do think that the shift are trying to make and want to make a little bit here now is to start really nurturing and helping those astrologers, young astrologers, and professional astrologers who really would like to be able to do this work and give them some, simple tools and resources and ways that they can do that because we think it's necessary and good and it is growing, right?
Right.
So we're going to dive into this. Let's go ahead and dive in and first talk about why many astrologers do avoid doing children's charts and the good reasons for this, and maybe some of the challenges or difficulties they face in sort of going from looking at charts of adults versus children.
Right. There are a lot of people, professional astrologers, that find it difficult because they're used to talking to adults. Obviously, you can't talk to the child. It's usually a mother that comes to you that wants to know something about her new baby, or maybe a grandmother wants a chart done for her new grandchild and wants to know something about the child. Usually, they ask a lot of questions about questions like, will my child be smart? Will my child be athletic? Will my child be an academic and do well in school? Or will they be into dance or this or that? And those are difficult things that people kind of shy away from projecting into the future.
Right.
We also have to take into account what child age you're working with. Maybe if it's not a baby, you're working with a 2 or 3 or even a teenager chart, and then you need to know a lot about what's going on in that child's life at that particular time. So a lot of astrologers are afraid that they might box the child in by saying, well, this or that or the other. Uh, and it's hard to predict the future for the child because we don't know how the dynamic of the development between the parent and the child, the parents and the child, and how they're going to interact in that development. And we know that sometimes that development is not always the best, that
Right.
conflicts can arise. But if we understand what to look for, we can give a lot of information to the parent that will be helpful in understanding their unique child because everyone born is totally unique.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and that fear factor thing is real. That fear factor thing is real, I think, on the part of the astrologer and the parent, because most of the parents that come to me or ask questions in the group, many of them have looked at the child's chart or Googled something and immediately are afraid of something they see or project something onto the chart that makes them worry or concerned about their relationship or about the child. And so it almost becomes that the astrologer is mitigating the parents' fears, right off the bat, rather than helping them learn and understand how
That's
they
right.
support the child and the real work on understanding themselves as a parent first and the environment and what have you. So it's a big it is important that astrologers are aware of those limitations, and if they're not comfortable, not not doing the charts of children or talking to parents about their children, but also that having the right counseling skills in order to be able to do that is really really helpful, so we can dispel the fears and then empower them. And I think what's really important too is to remember when to tell them it isn't good to look at the astrology, because we
Right.
can get really like, and I understand that as a parent who was looking at my child's chart literally the day he was born, like I understand like once you look, you can't unlook and you want to know. So it's important that astrologers really know how to help these parents who are already looking.
Sometimes parents read something on Google, and they say, oh, well, my child has Saturn or Pluto, to something, and they get scared because they don't know what it means. They think it's negative. And
Yeah.
so we have to explain to them that everything has a negative side, but it also has a positive side. So we're going to look at it a little differently.
Yeah.
But the problem is that so many parents have a little astrological information, but not enough to know what they're really looking at or how to interpret it.
Right, exactly. And there's too many things to consider in the chart. And I think, like you mentioned before, about age appropriateness is so important
Right,
because, a newborn, you really don't need to be focusing on the Saturn. That's just going to put you in a state of fear too, right? So there is
right.
like ethical burden that comes with doing children's charts and a lack of knowledge, both astrologically and I think in terms of child development is a real roadblock, a real roadblock for astrologers and for parents. They're so I think, broadly you can look at different things, maybe a little bit about the moon when they're young and what they really need to feel safe and secure to help that bonding and that attachment and that trust building. Or the sun, sure, maybe they will be creative or into X, Y, and Z, but it's, or the way that they approach a situation based on the rising, they may be a little slow to warm up or like really have a high level of approach to things, right? But
Mhm.
it's really about giving them the ability to know what to look for, what to observe in the child, rather than what something means,
Yeah,
right?
we even have tools for that. We have
Exactly.
assessments that the mother can make herself just through observation. And she
Exactly.
can also do one about herself and compare them and see where they're different.
Exactly. So let's get into like some of the reasons why building this skill set for astrologers is and can be so beneficial. Like astrology is becoming way more popular. Bottom line.
Yes, it
Parents are,
certainly has, and it certainly has with the younger generation.
yes. And so the number one thing is more and more people are looking at their children's charts, right? So they're looking, and we know that from the group. Over the last 7 years, it's grown to over, almost 1,000 moms in there looking, and that's just one group. I know that it's become way more popular.
I
So
know I have a friend and her daughter has had four children, and each one of them, she's get call me and given me the birth time, and I've, tried to tell her this temperament in this child and what to look for and how she needs to do certain things to make that child feel comfortable because each one is different than the
right.
other one. So
Yeah.
it's such good information for parents to help them realize that maybe one child is not like the other one
The
and
chances
has
are
different
they're
needs.
not. Yeah, they're definitely not, right? And also your nature is very different from your child. So you can first give information about how to nurture that child, but then you're immediately go back to, okay, so how am I able to, or what adjustments do I need to make to
If
actually,
you're a very fast moving adult and like to do things quickly, and you have a very slow moving child, that can be aggravating. Then you start nagging them and hurry up. Why are you so slow? You need to get on with it. And
right.
so you're building up this energy that's negative for the child. But once you understand that this is a slow moving child, then you give them the time and the space to go at their own pace.
Yes, absolutely. So it can really, really help parents. I mean, it definitely can help parents a lot, but there's a duty, I think, of us as a profession to be educated and aware in a way that we can do this work. So I think that by learning how to do it ethically, it will bring credibility to it. You know,
Yes.
that's necessary, I think, is to bring credibility to that and how to uphold that credibility, right?
Right. And one of the bases for credibility is the fact that this has been researched.
Yes.
Okay. It's been researched over time, and uh, the idea of temperament has been within the child development curriculum now for a long time. And they say this is the most important thing to understand in terms of a child's development and their interaction with parents and their environment at the same time.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
take a very active child, and they're living in a small apartment, and they're not getting the time they need to move around. You have to be aware of their needs, to take them out to the park and let them run and do things that will satisfy their needs to be active.
Yes. So I think it also, some of the benefits are being able to offer parents these positive strategies, parenting strategies, right, for nurturing the child or understanding where the potential conflicts could be in your struggles in parenting a particular child of a particular temperament, which could be different from yours, right? And also then releasing them from, I think, a sense of I'm doing it wrong. You know what I mean? Or the guilt that comes
Right.
with
I'll
wanting.
give you an example. I had two women in a mommy me class, and one had a little girl who was just smiling, happy, outgoing, active, just no problem. And her friend had a little boy who was whining and negative and difficult. And her first question to me is, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah,
She's comparing her child to her friend's child. And I'm saying, you're not doing anything wrong. I says, he has a different temperament than she does. So you're going to have to understand the strategies that go with it. And she said, oh, you mean it's not me? I said, no, it's not you. And once you understand his temperament, you'll be able to work with it. So he'll get the best development experience that he can.
exactly. You already kind of mentioned it is that, they need a safe platform in which to like help parents, inform parents about the child, right? And that information is guided first and foremost through your work, which is temperament, right?
Right.
And the temperament used by the ancient Greeks. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Well, the important thing to know about temperament is that every child, regardless of origin or sex or race, every child has a temperament.
Yeah,
And the temperament of that child interacts in an energy kind of way with the parents and with the environment. So we have to know that understanding this temperament is with every single child, and how to find it and understand it is part of the astrologer's job. Temperament has become quite important lately in the field of child development, and the
absolutely.
research been going on for a long time.
And I think that the book Kid Wheels that you wrote and the class based on that is about understanding how to assess and understand temperament in the child's chart. And it's become the foundation of my work with clients because it allows me to not worry about predicting things, but rather giving them the understanding of the child's, temperament versus theirs, and also looking at the age of the child, where they are in their development. You're not going to be talking about the same things when they're asking about, a toddler or a young child versus a teenager. They're going through very different things, both developmentally and astrologically, we know through the milestone transits that come. So I think that understanding child development and understanding the link between like the astrology and the milestone transits that we all go through is like it really, really helps take the guesswork out of it. It's like, okay, I'm dealing with a teen. Okay, here's the age. Here's what they're going through. Now asking questions of the parent. Okay, what are their actual concerns? What is happening with the child? What is the environment they're in or the problems they're having, rather than going even right into predicting about what that all means.
Let's use an example of the Mars.
Oh, yeah.
Every 2 years, it makes a shift. Okay, it affects the brain because Mars has a lot to do with the brain, and of course, the Mercury with the nerves. But
Mm-hmm.
when the child moves into the toddler stage, their Mars becomes activated, and there are certain issues that they have to deal with. I need to be independent. So I tell my mommy, no, I don't want that. So I've learned the word no, and of course, mommy's saying no back. The child is possessive. They say, no, that's mine. That's mine. They're going through all of these things that have to do with the element of Mars. So once you understand that, uh, you need what the issues are and you know how to deal with them.
Yeah. And every child, based on their temperament, their Mars is actually going to express differently.
Right,
You may have a child who has a tantrum, you may have a child who just cries, and there's very different expressions even of that based on the temperament, right?
right.
And you talk about Maslow's theory as well, in terms of the importance of understanding the stages because one kind of flows into the other. Can you explain a little bit more about that, Maslow's theory?
Well, Maslow talked about needs, the hierarchy of needs. Okay. The basic one is just survival. And a
Yeah,
lot of people get stuck in that one, just trying to survive. And each level rises a little higher where you can expand your journey as a human being and develop higher stages. And the very top one is when you become, oh, what would I say, fully developed and you become,
actualized.
yeah,
Mhm. Yeah.
that's what our journey is all about. But it begins with our basic development in childhood, say for the first six houses in the chart.
Mm,
We want to know each stage and what issues are there, and so the child masters that particular one. Because if it doesn't master that one in the first one, it's not going to develop the second one as well as it could have.
got you.
It's
Mhm.
like building blocks, you know.
Yeah, I was just gonna
One
say that.
builds on the success of the one before.
Absolutely, I got you. And so there's lots of different resources. I mean, like Eric Erickson is one of the resources you've taught me about, the 8 stages of development, and then PhD.
Erickson has been around for years and he's still used of his social emotional developmental. Okay. And it has to do with social emotional.
Mhm.
Whereas you have Piaget, what did more work with cognitive development and the
Gotcha.
different stages there.
Yeah, and I think that these are great tools that an astrologer, I was explaining to you the other day, like I've been studying astrology for 20 years, but I've only been studying child development since I've been a mother, and I've taken like parenting classes and mommy and me preschool and learning a lot about child development. And of course, as an astrologer, I've always been like, oh, this totally overlaps. This totally makes sense. And so, a professional astrologer maybe isn't going to go back to school for child development and get a degree per se, but I think that understanding, teaching yourself and learning about these basic developmental stages and cycles through these resources can give an astrologer real keys to help guide them in doing this work in a real responsible way. And I think that's what I've learned from you. That's the benefit I've found in even working with clients, so that you're not projecting onto the child, and that it also always comes back to the parent, because it's when you teach about the goodness of fit, it's our jobs as parents to make those adjustments. So
Right.
so when you're working with children and families, you always have to be taking the parents and the environment into account.
If you understand these concepts, because so many parents are frightened by the teenage years
Mhm.
because they know that often, this is where kids fall apart. And can I trust them? Will they be okay? Well, you're building from the very beginning the understanding of their temperament so that they will feel comfortable with themselves, and you will be building a sense of trust through communication with them so that when they reach the teenage years, you don't find it a big problem. You know
Right.
that you can trust them on certain things.
Yes, absolutely.
And the kids that have temperaments that offer some challenges, it's very helpful to them as they grow older to understand why they are the way they are.
Yes.
Because you find a shy child feels so different than other children. And so it's helpful to them understand it takes them a little time to get adapted to some new situation. So understanding the child's temperament and also teaching that temperament as the child gets older and the
Yeah.
strategies they can use to help themselves.
Yes.
And the
Absolutely.
other thing I wanted to say was the other important thing is one of the things in psychology and development and astrology is what we call the ego.
Oh, yes.
We talk about when you're talking to an adult, you're talking about the sun is the ego, represents the will to be, I want to do this, I want to do that. But the ego is not developed until you reach and you're really into your 20s.
Yeah.
It's a slow process all the way through in order to have a strong ego, which knows how to make decisions, correct himself. If you make a wrong decision, say, "Oh, well, that didn't work. Let me try something else." But the ability to have the strength to be malleable and make decisions that are good for one is a process that starts from the beginning, but it isn't fully developed until you get early 20s.
Yes. Yes, that's so true. We did a whole class on that. That's right. And it's good for, I think, parents to recognize too, at whatever point they come to this information or this knowledge or decide to see an astrologer about a child, whether they're young or an adult relationship with your child, these resources can help and they can offer information that does help release, some of the guilt, and then how to start maybe even repairing and healing, or going from where you are with the knowledge of the past and where you are presently and moving forward. And that's a big part of my work, is being present. Where are you in the present with the child and the relationship and what's happening? So we're not beating ourselves up about what we haven't done or the past, but really where we are and how we can move forward from here in a
Yeah,
in a
because the development of the relationship between the parent and the child also goes through this process of growth. And
Yes.
hopefully it'll be an open relationship where the child feels safe to come to the parent. I'm having this problem.
Mhm.
And can you help me with this or whatever? I'm having trouble at school. I'm having trouble with people,
Yeah.
relationships, whatever. And you're there to support them.
Yeah, I think it's a really great tool for learning how to share the wisdom of astrology without using the language. I know it's a big proponent for astrologers to really learn how to help people who don't understand astrology. You start talking a lot of astrological jargon and they don't get it. But it's like if you have that tool, you can still help them and guide your child or parent, whoever you're working with, that doesn't understand it, in a way that the astrology serves them, and understanding who they are and how to navigate relationships with other people, like self-acceptance, compassion for others. Another important thing is astrologers should always include the parent when working with children. I don't think that they should ever be left completely out of the equation. um,
Right.
Focus on some things in the child's chart, but always bringing it then back to, in terms of how are you going to help that child, you have to look at yourself. You have to look at your own temperament, your own dynamics, the synastry between the two of you, where there are these potential conflicts and where we can work on some of the where we can find those outlets for resolution in positive ways.
I think another important thing for astrologers to understand that the chart is not does not tell you who the parents are. It tells you the perception of the child. The child perceives
Yeah.
my mother's like this.
Mm-hmm.
And I may be different. And so we have this conflict. So I see her as a Capricorn who's trying to control me, or a Pluto who's trying to control me. Uh, but that's how the child is perceiving it. And so if you look at yourself and you look at your chart, your personal chart, you are also looking at how you perceived your parents. I had a good example of this when I saw three children of one mother, and each one was different, and each one had a different perception of their mother and a different kind of relationship. So you really understand that it's the child's perception that you're viewing.
That's a good point.
You got a fiery child that wants to be active all the time, and you've got, a fixed mother who doesn't like all of this and doesn't know how to handle it, then there's going to be some conflict.
Right, right. Parents who come to an astrologer typically are having some sort of struggle or challenge with their child, and they may have a strong temperament or, very fiery or fixed, and it doesn't complement them. And so there's this struggle. And so ultimately, it's also about showing them the value of the temperament long term when you nurture that temperament in a way that is helpful, because when doing that for the child, you're ultimately going to dispel some of that stress, right? And like
Right.
someone who's highly fixed and has very persistent temperament, that can help them at long term in their lives greatly. But in the short term, when they're young, that can be challenging for parents, right? So
Right.
that simple understanding and awareness for an astrologer to give to a parent can be like light bulb moment, can be like,
You
and
have to remember that we work with parents who come with two children who are not getting along, and she needs to understand why, because maybe they have totally different temperaments and they don't understand each other. So it's a way of helping them communicate or
yeah,
learn how to communicate. Yeah.
yeah,
Communication is so important.
key. And then you end up being this referee in the middle, right? So
Yes, you end up being a referee.
and then that's where we get into family dynamics. So there's astrologers who work in family dynamics, and sometimes they'll look at just your chart in terms of family dynamics. But if you're looking at your temperament, your partner or husband or wife's temperament, and your children's temperament, you've got to, whether it's three in a household or five or six in a household, the more you got in there, the more you've got to juggle. And it's not easy to do, but this is where I think this tool can provide a simple way in to give parents some real, like, safe.
That's
Um,
right. That's why if you understand temperament, it has to do with somebody's feeding the energy of your temperament or they're restraining it. So you find in a family, I might get along with my dad better than I get along with my mother, or vice versa. Or I might get along with my older brother, but the younger brother gives me a pain. So it really explains the family dynamics in such a way that it's easier to understand what's going on and how to deal with it.
yes, yes. So, I mean, so naturally, we're very passionate about having more astrologers understand this basic way of assessing the chart through temperament, and starting with that always when it comes to children's charts, and then building from there based on the age and stage of the child. And so let's kind of review and offer some of the resources that we think would be really helpful to either parents who are young astrologers who now really want to get into this, or even seasoned professional astrologers who would like to, or even child development, teachers or people who have this background that would like to bring astrology into it to do this work. I mean, obviously, we need a basic understanding of astrology. The deeper the astrology studies, of course, the better. But I do think if you're working with the basics of astrology and in conjunction with child development and temperament, you can really, really get started pretty simply. And then beyond that, communication, counseling skills, things like this, coaching skills, really being able to know how to guide from a place of not projection or um, or prediction, but rather observation and awareness and nurturing and guiding,
And
create.
that's my book, which is race based on research,
Mhm.
tells you how to determine temperament in a child by looking at the elements and the qualities. It's not that complicated.
Nope.
And you also look at aspects and things like that, but it's not that complicated. It's based on a number system, which you do through observation, and then you put them together to get a picture. Think of a flower with different petals, you know. Temperament is like the flower, but it has all these elements in it, the petals which make up the flower. So that's what kind of these temperamental components are. There's 9 of them. And so that's all been researched and gives you a process where you can determine that. So if you don't have to be an advanced astrologer to be able to read this book and use the system to help you get some knowledge of how temperament works in the child.
Exactly, because elements and modalities are often where we start in the beginning when you're learning.
Right.
Most parents, I mean, even in the parenting group, have bought your book and read it and been able to do it. Isn't something that you have to be, seasoned in all the techniques and all the different, branches of astrology. It really can, and I always think that the simplest things can really be the biggest, things that can help you with that basic awareness of understanding the elements and the modalities and in the components of temperament. I mean, it really is.
Right.
Yeah.
It does go back to the ancient Greeks because they talked about the elements and the qualities too as determining temperament. But it's been kind of lost
Yeah.
uh, as a tool that modern astrologers use. They don't talk that much about temperament in astrology anymore,
Yeah.
or make it a part of their analysis.
Yeah. I
But
think it's
there's
back. I think it's coming back some. And I think that what we want to do is try and encourage more astrologers to do this work, right? To offer up the different ways that they can study and learn this. Obviously, your class through temperament was the basis for me, and it changed everything. And then over the course of 2 years, you and I worked on going literally planet by planet and breaking down its role and its transits in the developmental cycle and giving tips and tools and strategies through sign, house placement, hard aspects that can be a real easy guide for both parents and astrologers wanting to do this work, right? So that
exactly, yeah.
we kind of over 2 years put together this like whole child conscious parenting with astrology program that is available and for self-study, and then our group has been sort of like a place where we can help nurture that. And I think we'd like to do more of that. We recommend that, blending these two, and could it be an easy way and a profound way of advancing this specialty in the field of astrology and bringing a lot of credibility to it, so that more astrologers are doing it to help more parents and families, and doing it in a credible, ethical way. I think helping parents not be as fearful and empower them can be done really simply, right?
Yeah, you have the tools that you can use to make the fit between the child and the environment better.
Yeah.
That's what they call the goodness of fit model. If the
Yeah.
child's particular temperament fits within the environment he's born into, then he'll probably proceed positively through his development. However, if there's conflict right from the beginning, between their temperaments, it's going to affect that process, and sometimes negatively. So knowing the child's temperament is key to understanding the child. And the
Absolutely.
more we understand the child, the better we can serve their needs through the strategies we use as parents.
Right.
And we know that we have to adjust our strategy skills for different types of children, or
Exactly.
how other children interrelate. So it's a
And
whole family thing, really.
You had mentioned, and I want to make sure we let them know that there's a website that you highly recommend called the Center for Parenting Education.org.
Right.
So there is a place that they click on that. Is it a parenting tab that they click on?
The library of articles,
Library of
and
Articles.
then you go to child development, and they have whole sections of different papers that you can print out that tell you about different aspects of temperament, parent strategies, tips for parents.
So, and also your class, you can, I have your book here too. So, Understanding the Child in the Chart is the book, and your class you teach at Kepler, you teach, when is the next class? I think it's this fall, right?
It's September, no, September 29th, 27th.
Okay.
September 27th, and it's from 5 to 7.
On
And you
Tuesday.
can go to Kepler and look at the class and see what's being taught in the class, and you can sign up for the class.
Excellent. And if that's not something you can dive into yet, the book is a great place to start. Also, Cornelia and I did an intro to temperament in the chart. We did a mini workshop you can grab as a one-off to dive into it a little bit with some examples and through our teaching. And then of course, our whole child conscious parenting with astrology program, you can dive into the entire program, self-study, or if there's certain, you just want to do the sun, moon, and rising, you could grab those, but those are all available for self-study. And we may be relaunching that even again and going through it in a way where we also add some live Q&As to help, astrologers integrate that. And that's our goal. You and I really have a passion for helping spread this work and teach this work, and we'd like to do it with more young astrologers or professional astrologers who want to do this kind of work. So definitely comment, let us know if you're interested in this. Come over to the Conscious Parenting with Astrology moms group, and you can always email me through the website nurturingastrology.com. So this is great. I'm so glad we had this conversation. I know we've been wanting to have it for a while because we've seen astrology growing in popularity immensely, and more parents looking at children's charts. And so I think it's important that there are more and more astrologers who are preparing themselves, and we have more astrologers doing this work credibly and honorably and responsibly. And so if you are wanting to study this kind of work, I'm sure there may be other people out there teaching it. I don't know how many, but we certainly are wanting to
Yes.
do more of it. So stay tuned for more of that from us, because that we will have more coming for you in this regard. And there are a whole other timeless talks that we've done on different things that are always available. So I think that if you want to go back to past podcasts about the benefits of parenting with astrology, some of the things we looked at in terms of temperament and element, we have lots of different shows that we've talked about over the years. And I think the shift that we're making now a little bit is trying to move more into how can we really start teaching and helping and training more astrologers who are interested in this work, and parents who are young astrologers interested in doing this work, how we can help them do that and how we can nurture them on their path to helping more and more families. Because there are a lot of parents and families out there that need the support and help and are seeking it. And so I think it's important that we kind of come together as a community and join forces, more people who are interested in doing this work. So
Yeah, I remember Marianne Mer.
yes, I
She
actually
says
have
it.
a quote. It's right here, Cornelia. There is no single effort more radical in its potential for saving the world than the transformation of the way we raise our children.
We want to raise healthy, happy, successful children.
Marianne
And
Williams.
that can be done if you have the right tools.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I am grateful for all of your mentorship and teaching over the years in providing me with the tools that have helped me in my personal life and my practice. So I'm honored to be doing this work with you. And thank you everyone for being here. And we will definitely see you on the next one. Stay tuned for more.
Yes.
Thanks for listening, and I hope you gained some great astrology insight and inspiration from today's show. I'd love to hear, so drop me a comment or share in a review. Check out the show notes for all the details and links about today's episode, how you can connect with me on social or work with me directly. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Oh, and for my moms out there, be sure to join my private Conscious Parenting with Astrology Moms group on Facebook. Come join a growing community of like-minded mamas supporting each other in the hardest job in the world with the help of astrology. Hope to see you over there. Take care and keep nurturing the nature, friends. I'll see you on the next episode.